Good evening. The trip home for Canadians stranded in Africa because of the Omicron variant is supposed to be a little easier now. But just ask some who've made it back, and they say the journey is fraught with bureaucratic confusion. A temporary exemption gets them back via Frankfurt with mandatory COVID tests and a mandate to isolate at a government-sanctioned hotel. But today, CTV News was bombarded with complaints, some telling us they feel like prisoners. CTV's Heather Butts reports.
The pandemic has taken a toll on many families. Laura Dodo's father died of COVID in July in South Africa. Months later, she returned home, only to face great confusion when Omicron surfaced and travel restrictions were imposed.
There's been absolutely no clear information coming from Ottawa.
An exemption made this weekend allows Canadians to fly out of South Africa, but they'll need to complete multiple COVID tests along the way.
That's the next hurdle, 5 negative PCR tests and to get through. And then the next venture, which is a government quarantine hotel.
For those already in a Toronto quarantine hotel, the confusion turned to frustration. Once travelers receive a negative test result, they're instructed to call a number to get a discharge notification. But many say they can't reach a quarantine officer more than 24 hours after a negative test.
No one's returned my calls. The first couple of calls, they took messages and said somebody would call me back. And the last number of calls have just gone unanswered.
Wael El-Shabakshi tested negative and waited for that call, but it never came, so he left.
I waited 18 hours, calling plenty of times with failure to talk to anyone, and at the end said, okay, it's 18 hours now, I need to leave. It's against the law to detain me in the hotel after having a negative result.
There were mounting complaints about mandatory quarantine hotels last spring. Many describe poor food and chaotic service. But this time, people are afraid to take photos. A handout at the hotel states it will not be tolerated and fines could be issued.
Only 5 minutes of fresh air, and that's in 2 days. In 2 days. In 2 days. Only 5 minutes of fresh air. I'm fully vaccinated. I have 3 negative PCR tests. I'm being treated as a criminal, a detainee.
Many disappointed by the confusion nearly 2 years into the pandemic.
I would have expected that there would have been a better plan after this long to address any new variants.
When asked about the lengthy delays for those in quarantine hotels, the Public Health Agency of Canada referred us to a statement issued Friday by the health minister, only saying they are ramping up capacity quickly and testing more travelers each day. Sandy.
Okay, Heather.